Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson from Creative Guitar Studio. Thanks for joining me on my weekly guitar blog here. We have some questions that I want to go over through with you today. The first one comes to us from Barry. He wrote in saying, I wanted to know if your tutorial books are available in book form or are they only available as eBooks? I get these kinds of questions quite often, and everything is only available as a digital product download. Those books, to be able to print them and do the binding and then work out the shipping costs, I sell this stuff basically all over the world, and shipping costs, let's say, to someplace really far from where I am. I'm here in Canada, so let's say if someone wanted something shipped to Australia or something, the shipping costs would be quite high. And just to keep the costs down and make everything really affordable, everything is basically a digital product. Now, I do get some folks really requesting that I go into making some type of a DVD program. I am considering something like that, but more than likely, just with the way things are with the internet now, and everybody's basically running off of, or mostly everybody anyway is dealing with high-speed internet. I mean, most of this stuff can be downloaded even as digital files, as video files, and so on. So I think that in the future, I may consider some type of DVD program, but again, it's just the shipping and the logistics of all that physical product side of things that can be a problem. It's far easier to deal with a digital product than it is to deal with a physical product overall. Let's go to the next question here. The next question is from Ross. He wrote in saying, I'd like to know if the intonation of my guitar needs to be adjusted every time I change my strings. I always use the same 11 gauge strings on my electric. So he's just wondering if when he's doing a string change, if he has to check his intonation. I mean, it doesn't hurt, but I would say, maybe you can check it every third or fourth string change, but it probably, you won't really need anything too much adjusted there. Where you want to really look at it in all seriousness is, let's say if you went from 11 gauge strings over to perhaps, downgrading that way down to, like, let's say a set of 9s, where you got real thin strings all of a sudden. You're definitely going to want to check your intonation in that type of situation. But if you're sticking with the same gauges, you're pretty safe. Let's go to the next question here. This one is finally a playing question. It's from Daniel out in Ghana, West Africa. He wrote in saying, which chords can you mostly use for playing arpeggios? Now, I thought that was an interesting question. To me, first of all, it doesn't seem like you have a really good handle on arpeggios, but arpeggios are chords. So if you had a chord, let's say like, D major. Now, the notes of D major are D, F sharp, and A. And if you just outline that chord, you can go through the whole chord and play every tone and basically get yourself your arpeggio. You'll have to learn the shapes, of course, if you want to do sevenths. You have to learn the seventh shapes and so on and so on. And that, that's a different chord. Of course, a major 7 is one extra note than the triad. But you're going to have to probably study chords and get a good handle on how chords operate and realize that the arpeggios really are the chords, So your arpeggios that you want to, tackle, just like in sense of the chords you'll want to tackle, would be major, minor, augmented, and diminished in the triad set. And then when you get into sevenths, of course, it would be major 7, minor 7, dominant 7th, and then an arpeggio called minor 7 flat 5, or half diminished. And then there's also fully diminished as well. So it sounds like, you may have a lot of work ahead of you and everything, but it's really important work. I would say in the beginning, get your major and minors down, and then maybe the next one up I would probably consider to be very important there would be the dominant 7th arpeggio. And just realize that, when you're playing a chord, if you want to outline that chord in a progression, the arpeggio will give you the outline of the chord. So there's a A7 chord, and I just outlined it with an A dominant 7th arpeggio. Another example I could maybe give you is, let's say you had a progression of something like perhaps a G to a C, and then maybe if I went to E minor, or something like that, you did whatever, chords in a progression, in other words, is what I'm trying to get across here. As you go through each of those chords, you can outline the chord with a lead that's just pertaining to the arpeggio for the chord. So on the G chord, you would be playing G arpeggios. When the C chord would roll in, of course, at that time you would be doing some C arpeggio sounds. And then when the E would roll in, of course, you'd be doing E. So as the chords go by, you basically play the arpeggio for the chord of the moment, and you're covering the sounds of it. Now there's a whole other world of ideas that are available to you as well in arpeggio substitutions. So if you want to get more of an idea about that, check out a video series I put together on my Creative Guitar Studio YouTube channel that are called Super Chops. I give lots of ideas for arpeggio substitutions there, as well as pentatonic substitutions too. I got time for one more question, and this one comes to us from Kelly out in Calgary, Alberta. He wrote in here saying, as a guitar teacher, have you ever had anyone bounce a check on you for lessons payment and then not make good on it? And if so, what did you do? And if you have any suggestions for me on what I should do? Well, I've been a musician for pretty much pushing 20 years, and not only have I had people not pay for lessons or bounce checks on lessons, but I've had them do it on gigs as well. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind here is that if somebody doesn't pay you, that's harder to collect on than as if somebody basically bounces a check on you. Bouncing a check and then not making good on the check payment is a pretty serious thing because, you know, in the eyes of the law, it's actually looked upon as fraud. So if they don't pay you within, let's say, 10 to 12 days or so, you know, give them some time, let them get their finances in order. Maybe they might contact you and just say, you know what, I have to wait till I get paid next, but I'll make good on it. But, you know, by all means, if let's say about 14 or 15 days go by, they don't pay you, and they maybe start not returning your phone calls or something like that, the first thing that you should do is go to the police and inform the police of what happened, give the person's name and address, phone number, that kind of thing, and file a police report. And then the next thing is to go to the small claims court office in your hometown and basically start filing a case against them for the bounced check, because a bounced check is fraud, and it's a pretty serious offense. You know, a warrant will be placed out for their arrest if they don't show up to the court date to step in front of a magistrate or a judge to explain why they didn't make good on the check. So it's a very serious offense, and like I said, it's actually in one sense better that they bounce the check rather than not paying you at all, because if you go to court with something like where someone doesn't pay you, then you have to explain to the magistrate or the judge that's going to preside over that case of what exactly you were supposed to get paid for, and it becomes fairly involved because you have to sort of prove to the court why you are supposed to be getting paid in the first place. Now, if someone has bounced a check, they've agreed that they were supposed to pay you, and they just basically didn't bother to make sure they had the money in their account on that check payment. So it's a lot more serious of an offense, and it's actually a lot more easier to collect on. So anyway, hopefully that helps you out a little bit. But anyway, that's about all the time that I have for today. Thanks for joining me and for sending in all the great questions that you guys submit off the website every week. Thanks very much, and take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.